Hello and welcome to everybody. Welcome to the September Chocolatey Unwrapping Chocolatey webinar, which is titled Chocolatey Extensions. Um, I'm James Ruskin. I'm not normally the host or a co-host, but I'm here today and I am more than excited about Chocolatey Extensions somehow or other. I'm joined today by Mike or Michael. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm fine with Mike or Michael. I'm the newest member here at Chocolatey on the ops team, and I'm here to learn along with you from James and cover some things I found interesting.
Wonderful. Yeah, so what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about Chocolatey Extensions, as we said. Um, to get real basic about it, what are they? They're Chocolatey packages. If you were here for last month's webinar, which was with Ryan and Stevie, we already covered what kind of packages you can make and what a Chocolatey extension is at a basic level. But at the most basic level, it is just a package that contains a PowerShell module that gets loaded into context when you're installing, upgrading, uninstalling a Chocolatey package. So really simple kind of base level concept, but there's so much you can do with that. As we say with Chocolatey running PowerShell under the hood, there's just so much. The possibilities are basically endless. So you can do anything from add new functionality just as functions within Chocolatey packages to adding compatibility layers. If you have, say, something that used to be available in Chocolatey that isn't anymore, there's a Chocolatey compatibility extension. There's validation that you can add in. So Choco Pack can run additional commands when you're packing packages to check that you're going to pass community standards when you're uploading to the community repository. That's fantastic. And then there's just stuff like being able to install new and different things like fonts or, well, we'll get into ISOs in a second, or anything like that. It's fantastic. You can really extend it just about any way you want. And it's as powerful as PowerShell in many dangerous ways. But we'll get back to that too. Um, Before we get much further in, I should say we're obviously open to questions throughout this entire thing. If you have any questions, please just chuck them into the Q&A section. Just it should be at the bottom, and we'll get to answering those either on the stream or via typing back at you as we can. So let's have a look at what a package might look like and what we can talk about from there. Start off, we're going to show you what we've semi-jokingly titled a bad example. We don't think it's actually bad. We just think it could be done better in a lot of cases. So here's our example of a vanilla package that may be less than what you might want to see. So very standard layout. We've got a new spec. We've got a Chocolatey install file, and I've just realized I deleted one of the files that I need for this demonstration. Always good. While I briefly restore that with this friendly Kraken. Does anybody have any questions? Not quite yet.
While we're waiting and that's recovering, quick question. You'd mentioned that extensions are just a PowerShell module. Are there any constraints on what an extension can be, or will you get into that a bit?
No, absolutely not. So it can be any PowerShell module that you can load in a PowerShell environment. So, if you want to have just a straight script file or a PSM1, if you want to have a manifest along with that, so a PSD1 and a PSM1, if you want to have a file that goes and dot sources a bunch of other PowerShell files or a compiled C# module, all of those things are going to work for you. So whatever you want, the magic is in the extension package, and we'll get into how that all works in a second.
Cool.
Thank you for the question. So really basic layout. We've got a Chocolatey install script that goes and dot sources, a helpers file function, file full of functions even. And in there, we've got a lovely function that is going to be used by our package. So you can see here that this is going to go and try and install Chocolatey an ISO package, which will just unpack an ISO. And then within that ISO, it's going to go and run a file from there. Obviously, this is a fine pattern, but if you have, say, a bunch of different packages that are going to go and try and install an ISO or a file from an ISO, then you're going to find that you have this function replicated everywhere, both in your code, in your code base, and also in your repository, and potentially on disk when you've installed it. So your lib folder will end up filled with dozens of little copies of this helpers file. That could be less than ideal. So what you probably want to do instead is we're going to use an extension, which will allow you to publish this function once, deploy it. If you patch it, you'll be able to use that same patched version with all of your different packages, and you can just use it everywhere like that. So much more efficient. You're not going to end up with, rewriting or reusing code that may be out of date. And yeah, it's just a little bit easier. So if we were going to go and do that, we would probably come in here to the new spec, and we could depend on something such as, instead of having a helpers file to, essentially rewrite the wheel, because there are people who have probably solved the problems you're looking for, you would end up with something like a dependencies block that contained a dependency for the Chocolatey isomount extension, which is, I've got an example here. I'm just going to steal from, just to highlight the not reusing the wheel. Well, let's jump in here for a second then. So yeah, all you do is you'd end up with a dependency that looks something like this, and you'd have to go in and convert your Chocolatey install to use install Chocolatey ISO package, which happily is the name of a function in that module anyway, that extension. And then you could just delete your helpers file, and you would have a perfectly valid package that uses an extension. So any questions about that? No? Fantastic. So moving on then. What is an extension package? This is just going to be covering some stuff that you may have seen last week, but I think it's still useful stuff. So we'll just dive in. But an extension package basically looks like any other package. So at a basic level, you've got a new spec. You may have a Chocolatey install or uninstall script. It's kind of optional, but you don't need to worry about it because Chocolatey will treat any package that's got the .extension ID suffix slightly magically, and it'll go and find an extensions file within there, an extensions folder within there, and it will add that to the extensions file folder in your Chocolatey install directory. So if you have a look at, let's worryingly have a look at my Chocolatey install, we can see that I've got a couple of extensions here. Not as many as you might think, but yeah, a couple of useful ones. And that's where they get installed. So essentially, if you go looking for this folder after you've installed it, that's where it'll be. And you can see here we've just got a very basic PSM1 that goes in .sources, all the available functions in here, and then a nice task creating function for you. So very basic, but really simple, really easy to understand, and really easy to write yourself if you want to. Obviously, some differences are that you don't need to have the tools directory or anything within there, but that's about the same otherwise.
So, quick thought. Earlier, I'd thought or posed the question of what an extension could be. And now that you're covering a bit more about extensions, why would I use an extension over a PowerShell module?
That's fair. So yeah, if you were, you could always use a PowerShell module. Obviously, anything that you've installed as a PowerShell module on your system is going to be available to Chocolatey. So if you had installed, say, Nexus Shell or something that you would use to manage something within a package, you could just use that. But in the case of anything that you would use that is going to be Chocolatey specific, that you wouldn't want a user to ever be able to use outside of a Chocolatey package, you might want to use an extension instead, because that will be restricted. It's not going to be exposed to anybody. It's not going to mess up the environment in any way, shape, or form. So for things like Chocolatey install handlers, so if you had like install Chocolatey ISO package, for example, you're never going to want anybody to run that anywhere else. But yeah, otherwise you could use either. This is just a nice way of exposing it to the Chocolatey and Chocolatey alone.
Cool.
So yeah, so we've already shown off at a basic level how you would then add your toolbox extension, or rather your an extension as a dependency. But you can see in this example here, we've got a couple of different packages that are going to go and use that toolbox extension to go and install a couple of scheduled tasks. And because we're using an extension package, we're not going to have to ship that helpers file in the same place. We've got our Chocolatey install files, and we're just going to call that function directly. It's as simple as PowerShell, and you can just assume it's going to be there. This is kind of a basic level of it because you can do more things with extensions than just exposing functionality, but this is the core thing. It's fantastically easy to do that. So yeah, both of these packages just literally go and you can use them to call things differently. And you can use your lovely extension to do that twice over. So making good time here, as always I do. Mike, did you want to show off templating extensions?
I'd love to. I'll steal the share from you.
Perfect.
And just let me know once you can see my screen.
Yep, I can see that now.
Cool. So James did a wonderful job there of covering what an extension is and why you should use them. I'll go over a bit how you can more conveniently include an extension as a dependency for packages by using Chocolatey templating. More information for what I'll be covering can be found in the various Chocolatey tutorials. However, some of the applicable ones are in the README for this example, which I believe the repo will be shared after the webinar. But again, like James noted, go ahead and let us know if you have any questions while I'm talking. At a high level, a template is just a file with placeholder values that will be replaced when run through a template engine or parser. Placeholders are similar to a variable or key value pair. If you're looking down a little further, you can see an example here or here. In the case of Chocolatey, a template is actually a collection of these templated files in a directory that represents the desired structure of the package to be created from the template. If you're familiar with the concept of templating, great. If not, no problem. We're going to see a quick example. What we'll be starting off with is preparing the Chocolatey templating directory for the template we'll be creating, which I'm just generically calling install template with extensions. It is worth noting, by default, Chocolatey templates are stored in C program data Chocolatey templates. Depending on the install path, that may change. So we have to create the desired directory structure for any Chocolatey package created from the template in that default templates directory. So let's run this to create that structure. Cool. Now the exciting part of the template, some placeholders. As I briefly mentioned a moment ago, throughout this templated new spec, there are identifiers surrounded by double square brackets throughout the metadata block. Anything in the template can access these defined key value pairs that are passed into the template at package creation. So what do I mean by anything? I'm primarily referring to text-based files, typically scripts or metadata like this. The templating syntax could look familiar if you've done some templating before. The identifier within the brackets is the key that will be automatically replaced with the associated value, which will pass at package creation. Some of these keys are inherently available, such as this package name lower and package version, which are derived when creating a package. It is important to note that our custom extension here, toolbox extension, is being added, just like James showed. I did want to note the importance of including a version along with it. If the version is not included, a NuGet v3 feed would not find the extension, which is particularly important if you're using a NuGet feed as your source. So in this instance, we'll be using this template to dynamically create the metadata of a package. while the template is relatively simple, it helps to keep it useful across a variety of install use cases that could need this toolbox extension to be available. So let's run this and create the template file. And now that I have that adaptable template defined, I want to make it the default template so I can use it, makes sense, without having to specify the template by name, by just running Choco new in the future. So I'll set that as my default when running Choco new. And here we're just going to define the values to pass to the template and then immediately pass them into Choco new via these command line flags identified by the key name. This will scaffold out a new package directory to develop our package in. Note that I don't have to specify the template name anywhere because it's now just the default. So let's go ahead and run that. And now we've built out the standard directory structure for a package so that it contains a tools directory and new spec, again, just like James showed us a moment ago of what's necessary. So let's copy in the kind of skeleton of a package. I'm going to move in my Chocolatey install and Chocolatey uninstall. And let's take a look at what that Chocolatey install is actually doing. It starts out with the typical preamble for a Chocolatey install to get its bearings here, defining the toolsdir. What we actually care about is that in this instance, we want to run our exe on a schedule. So we're using our new Chocolatey scheduled task convenience function to schedule that to run daily 18 seconds from now. And let's take a peek at what uninstall does. There's not much to see here. All this is doing is removing the schedule task that was predictably named.
And of course, just want to call out that it's quite useful to have when you're relying on extension functions, because though you may have an extension uninstall function for whatever you're using to install there, um, if you don't handle that in an uninstall script, you may be in trouble. Because if you're relying on auto uninstaller, though auto uninstaller is great, it does pick up, registry changes and file changes, especially in the lib folder. It's not going to get some random thing that it has no concept of what's in an extension function until that's there. There's no declarative stuff there. It's just gonna know what you can do. So if you're using an extension, having an uninstall is super important. We didn't have that earlier, so just wanted to call that out as great to have.
Well, thanks for pointing that out. Um, so we're going to switch back over to commands and we're going to pack this up and install it. So based on what we saw in that Chocolatey install script in roughly 20 seconds from now, which hopefully coincidentally is roughly how long it takes me to finish the next couple sentences, the exe included in our package should run after being triggered by the scheduled tasks. So while we wait, has anyone thought of any questions? And if so, feel free to share in the Q&A section and we will address those in a moment. And there is our pop-up indicating our package and myself are running roughly on schedule.
Now, just out of curiosity, are you sharing your window or?
Yeah, I was sharing just the window, so we all missed the exciting
I'm
pop-up, but
sorry.
you can believe me that it was there. Run it yourself.
That is fair. As mentioned, the examples are going to be in a repository. So yeah, you're very welcome to go grab them from the Chocolatey webinars repository, I think it is.
And I will just uninstall and trigger that uninstall script to deschedule the task so I don't see my surprise window tomorrow.
Yes. 5:20 sorry. 5:20 local time. Whatever BST translates to.
I'm not seeing any questions come in, so I'll pass that back to James.
Sure. And I shall share a little more. This this bit is just on some of the weirder stuff you can do. So obviously we covered some fairly basic usages, but there's been a lot of really interesting stuff you can do with extensions as well. Obviously, as I said, they're basically as powerful as PowerShell can get. Um, so you can do just about anything you want. A few years ago, me and Manfred Wallner and Emrys McNally wrote package debug extension, which is something that essentially just goes and hijacks your package and pauses and waits for a debugger. So if you're trying to write a package, then this is fantastic because it means, if you're having interesting issues while you're in there and you can't quite replicate them outside of Chocolatey, or you want to find out exactly what's happening, what variables are available, what we're doing on the inside, you can come and use package debug, provide a single parameter such as debug or pre-hook package, etc. And you'll be able to drop in exactly where you want to. If you want to run during a package install script, for example, or before that happens, you can just drop in, connect your debugger, and have fun looking at that. For the record, the IDE we're currently using, I think both of us are using, is VS Code. Would thoroughly recommend it. It's fantastic. The PowerShell extension is a wonderful thing. Worked on very, very nicely. So that's the package debug extension. There's also, if you want to do stuff like extending Chocolatey, I mentioned earlier the delightful community, it's the community validation extension that Kim Nordmo wrote, which basically goes and runs a load of tests when you pack a package to see what you can, what would pass when you uploaded it to the CCR, the Chocolatey Community Repository. You can do immense things, such as, for example, I was looking to implement package parameters, PowerShell parameters within Chocolatey packages, because that's something I really like and value. So I went and submitted a PR, but in the meantime, while that hasn't been accepted, for backwards compatibility as well, so if anyone wants to run that on a Chocolatey 1.x installation, for example, I've written an extension that will go and do exactly the same thing in a terrifying way. But you can absolutely do that, and we'll go and we'll set all the things up so that you can use package parameters within, you can use PowerShell parameters within a Chocolatey package. So it's fantastic. You can do just about anything you want with that, almost to a dangerous extent. But obviously, as you can control what people can install on your machines, it's not a dangerous extent to you. You get to choose your level of fun. Danger. Either one works. So, other than a couple of questions around VS Code, I haven't seen much. Does anybody have any other questions about anything Chocolatey related?
Or not chocolatey related.
Or not Chocolatey related? Actually, that's a good one. I mean, semi-Chocolatey related. I think I've been given a direct order to ask you on stream, on recording, how you would pronounce that word.
Oh, that word, the NUPKG file extension.
Yes, indeed.
I'm going to go against the grain and pronounce the entirety of it and say new package.
I mean, it's a good answer. I think it makes sense. You can't go wrong. You're not saving time, but that's okay.
And how would you pronounce it, James?
I mean, now I'm gonna have to say the same thing.
You-
Yeah, I think I've been accused of saying nutcake before, which is, I think I picked that up in a previous workplace. Not ideal. Well, okay. Would you like to talk about anything else? I mean, I could go into more dangerous extensions, but that seems like a counterproductive idea for many reasons.
I don't have anything prepared to share from here. The main things that come to mind for me are like you really started to talk with, which is the kind of extensibility of Chocolatey and how it's PowerShell under the hood, like we love to say. So what I would take from this is just how readily extensible it is, and I can go and solve my problems with it if it's the right tool for that job.
Yeah, that's very fair. So the question is it possible to add some code in Chocolatey to run some own logging? And yeah, it's a popular option. You might more traditionally see that in either in a hook package or something like that if you wanted to try doing reporting based on package install success. So you could say, I think Manfred Woolner has written a hook package that allows him to go and report on things when they succeed. Yeah, so it's definitely something you can do. You could also write an extension to either add logging at different points, because one of the things that I didn't show, but is quite crucial to, say, the package debug extension is that it actually runs code at the beginning of when it's being imported. It runs a little bit of code to basically set up everything that it's trying to do. So you can do that, and you can basically overwrite various things to try and get logging into places. But if I'm honest, if I was doing logging, I'd probably just ingest logs from the logs directory in Chocolatey and ship them in another way. I hope that helps. Have great days, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I hope it was useful. If there is anything else, do give us a shout, either on Blue Sky or something like that, or anywhere you want, and we will happily set up more content for you, and hopefully get things that you'll enjoy.